The hospital hallway reeked of antiseptic and fear. Nurses darted in and out of the maternity ward, their white shoes squeaking on the tiled floor. Outside room 304, a tall man in a crisp navy blue suit clutched his phone, his face pale but unreadable. That man was Caleb Johnson, 34 years old, an ambitious corporate manager with everything going for him except patience. From inside the room, a woman's agonized cries echoed through the corridor. "Caleb, please don't leave me," she screamed between contractions. Her name was Amara Johnson, a 30-year-old marketing strategist and his wife of 5 years. Sweat drenched her hospital gown, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she reached out her trembling hand toward the door. But Caleb didn't turn back. He was staring at the text message that just appeared on his phone. "The board just announced it. Congratulations, Mr. Caleb, our new executive director. I knew you'd make the right choice." From Mrs. Vivian Cole, CEO. Vivian Cole, his wealthy boss, his secret lover. Caleb's heart pounded, not from love or guilt, but from greed. Vivian was 50, powerful and widowed, worth nearly $1 billion. She had promised him a seat beside her, in business and life if he proved his loyalty. And proving loyalty meant one thing: leaving Amara. He looked one last time at the door, the faint sound of Amara's cries muffled by the heartbeat monitor. "You'll be fine," he muttered under his breath, straightening his tie. Then, without hesitation, he walked out of the hospital, past the nurses, past the reception desk, and out into the cool Lagos evening. Inside, Amara screamed again. Her mother wasn't there yet. Her husband had just vanished. The doctor shouted for assistance as Amara's body trembled violently. "Her blood pressure is dropping. We need to move now." The room spun. Amara's vision blurred. The last thing she heard before losing consciousness was the cry of a newborn. But outside, as Caleb's car pulled out of the hospital parking lot, his phone buzzed again. "Vivian. Have you done it?" "Caleb. Yes. She's out of my life for good." "Vivian. Good boy. Now come home. We have a wedding to plan." He smirked and pressed the accelerator. Cut to 2 months later. A lavish mansion in Banana Island. Gold curtains, a string quartet, guests dressed in shimmering fabrics, cameras flashing as Caleb, in a tailored white tuxedo, kissed his new bride, Mrs. Vivian Cole Johnson. But even as champagne flowed, a broadcast flickered to life on the enormous LED screen near the stage. The headline across the TV read, "Breaking news, young woman leads groundbreaking $800 million corporate merger between 2 global firms." The crowd murmured in awe. Vivian turned to look. Caleb froze, his smile fading. The cameras zoomed in on the face of the woman standing at a press conference in front of flashing cameras. She wore a fitted black blazer, radiant and confident, her belly no longer swollen from childbirth. Her voice was calm and commanding. "My name is Amara Johnson, lead strategist for Global Vista Inc. This $800 million merger will change Africa's tech industry forever." The entire hall fell silent. Caleb's champagne flute shattered in his hand. The host's microphone crackled. "Wait a minute, isn't that the woman you—" Vivian's expression darkened, her diamond earrings trembling as she clenched her jaw. Amara's speech continued on the big screen, her tone icy but proud. "To those who doubted me, abandoned me when I needed them the most, I say thank you, because your betrayal birthed my power." Then she looked straight into the camera. And for a brief, haunting moment, it felt as though she was staring directly at Caleb. He stumbled backward, breathless. His mind raced. She can't know. She can't possibly. But she did, because Amara had just signed a deal that not only made her wealthier than Vivian, it made her Caleb's new boss. Fade out. The story rewinds 6 years earlier. Back then, Caleb and Amara weren't rich. They were just 2 dreamers sharing a small apartment in Surulere, Lagos. Amara, with her soft brown skin and natural curls always tied in a neat bun, had just gotten a job as a junior strategist at Global Vista Inc., a small but promising tech startup. Caleb, tall and confident with a polished charm, worked in a rival company, Cole Holdings. They met in church, fell in love quickly, and married within a year. Their love was real, or so Amara thought. She was the kind of woman who believed in partnership. She supported Caleb through every challenge, cooking late-night meals when he came home tired, helping him rehearse his presentations and praying for his success. But as Caleb's career took off, something in him began to change. He wanted more. More money, more power, more status. And Vivian Cole saw that hunger. The CEO of Cole Holdings, Vivian was known across Nigeria as the Iron Lady. Her late husband had built an empire in finance, and when he died, she took control, cold, commanding, and cunning. She noticed Caleb's ambition from the moment he joined her company. She called him into her office one Friday evening. "Caleb," she said, her red lipstick glinting under the office light, "you're different from the rest. You think like me." He smiled, his ego swelling. "I just want to make an impact, Mom." "Call me Vivian," she said smoothly, rising from her chair and walking around her glass desk. "And if you stay loyal to me, I'll make you a king." That was the beginning. From that night on, Vivian began inviting him to private dinners, foreign trips, and board meetings he wasn't supposed to attend. The more she gave, the more he wanted. Meanwhile, Amara was pregnant with their first child. She had no idea her husband was slowly drifting away, spending nights, working late, and ignoring her calls. One night, as she prepared his favourite jollof rice, she called him again. "Caleb, it's 11 p.m. Where are you? I'm worried." "I'm still at the office," he lied, sitting beside Vivian in her Range Rover, heading to her mansion. Amara sighed, rubbing her swollen belly. "Okay, just come home safe." He hung up without replying. Over the next few months, Caleb grew colder. He started criticizing her for not being ambitious enough, comparing her to his boss. "You should see how Vivian runs things. Confident, bold, powerful. You're too emotional, Amara. That's why people don't take you seriously." Those words stung, but Amara endured them, believing that one day her husband would change. Then came the promotion offer, the one that would change everything. Vivian invited Caleb to a private dinner at the Echo Hotel rooftop lounge. The lights of Lagos shimmered below them. She wore a sleek red gown and poured him a glass of champagne. "I can make you executive director," she said, her voice low. "But there's one condition." He frowned. "What condition?" "You must cut off all distractions, especially the ones holding you back." Her eyes said what her lips didn't. He knew she meant Amara. That night he didn't go home. Days later, Amara went into labour. Her mother was on the way, but Caleb was nowhere to be found. She called him 15 times, no answer. He was in Vivian's penthouse, watching the sunrise. His phone turned off. By the time he turned it back on, Amara was in the delivery room fighting for her life, and he didn't care. That was the day he abandoned her. But what Caleb didn't know was that life had its own plans. While he was chasing Vivian's fortune, Amara was unknowingly sitting on an opportunity that would make her a global icon. A phone call she received 2 days before giving birth would soon turn everything upside down. Rain poured hard against the narrow windows of the old one-bedroom apartment in Surulere. Amara sat at the edge of her bed, a soft blanket draped over her shoulders as her newborn son slept soundly beside her. The hum of the ceiling fan was uneven, clicking occasionally as though it struggled to stay alive. The room was dimly lit by a single fluorescent bulb that flickered every few seconds. It had been 3 weeks since she gave birth. Alone. Caleb never came back. Not to the hospital. Not to the apartment. Not even a call. Instead, he'd sent a short message through his lawyer. "This marriage is over. I've moved on. I'll send some money for the child." Those words crushed her. She remembered how she'd clutched her phone that day, her vision blurring as tears streamed down her face. Her mother, Mama Ifeoma, had stood by the door, shaking her head with quiet anger. "Some men are curses in disguise," she said bitterly. "But the God who gives a woman strength after betrayal, he's still on the throne." Amara didn't reply. She couldn't. The pain was too deep to put into words. Her heart still held memories. Caleb laughing with her as they cooked together, his head resting on her lap as they planned their dreams. The promises he made when she told him she was pregnant. "I'll be the best father in the world. You'll never lack anything, Amara." Now the only sound in her world was the crying of her newborn son, Eli. Still, even in that darkness, something began to stir within her. Something fierce and unbreakable. She wasn't going to let pain define her story. That night, as thunder rolled over the city, Amara picked up her phone and opened her email. There it was, a message from Mr. Adney, the CEO of Global Vista Inc., the company she'd worked for before maternity leave. "Amara, your idea about the Pan-Africa tech merger has drawn serious attention. The board wants to see your proposal. Let's talk when you're ready." Her heart skipped. It had been a dream project, an idea she'd pitched months ago to merge small African tech firms under one umbrella, giving local developers global reach. She thought the idea had been buried after her pregnancy break. Apparently it hadn't. But she looked at her baby and sighed. "How can I do this now?" she whispered. Mama Ifeoma entered holding a cup of warm pap. "You can't let that man's betrayal be the end of your life," she said firmly. "You're stronger than that. I raised a fighter." Amara smiled faintly. "But Mama, I don't even know where to start." "Start where you are," her mother said, "with faith." That night, as the rain slowed, Amara stayed awake beside her baby's cradle. And for the first time since Caleb left, she opened her laptop. By morning, her determination had taken root. She began typing the proposal again, pouring every ounce of passion and pain into it. Days turned into nights. She worked while Eli slept, sometimes with one hand rocking his cradle and the other on the keyboard. She researched, she wrote, she reached out to contacts who had once ignored her. She didn't realize it, but pain had sharpened her focus. What once felt like tragedy was slowly turning into transformation. Meanwhile, across the city, Caleb was living his dream. Or what he thought was a dream. Banana Island. The mansion glowed under the morning sun with a private pool and marble floors that reflected the gold trimmings of the walls. Caleb stood by the balcony, sipping imported coffee, dressed in a designer robe. Vivian Cole was seated on a chaise lounge, scrolling through her tablet. "Caleb," she said without looking up, "the media will be here soon. I want you beside me when we make the announcement." He smiled smugly. "Of course, darling. Anything for you." Vivian's lips curled into a faint smile. "You did well leaving that woman. She would have only dragged you down." Caleb nodded, though his smile faltered slightly. For the first time in weeks he thought of Amara, not because he missed her, but because of how abrupt it all felt. He tried to push the thought away, but it lingered, like a ghost in the corners of his mind. Vivian looked at him with a possessive gaze. "Don't forget, Caleb, everything you are now is because of me." He forced a laugh. "Of course." Yet deep down a chill ran through him. He had traded his soul for comfort. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he feared that the bill would soon come due. Back in Surulere, Amara was on her second cup of coffee, her baby sleeping peacefully beside her. Her phone buzzed. It was an email notification. "Amara Johnson, you've been shortlisted to present your merger proposal before the Global Vista Board next Friday." Her eyes widened. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her heart raced. Mama Ifeoma, who was peeling yam in the kitchen, rushed in. "What is it?" Amara turned the phone around, trembling with excitement. "Mama, they want to see my project," her mother gasped, eyes glistening. Then you must give them a reason never to forget your name. Amara smiled, a genuine smile, one she hadn't felt since the day Caleb walked out. I will, Mama. I promise. She spent the next few days preparing for the presentation. She watched videos of global mergers, refined her pitch, and even practiced in front of the mirror. Her voice was firm but graceful. But the night before the meeting, something happened. Her babysitter cancelled. Her mother had a high fever and couldn't help. The rainstorm that night flooded the streets. Amara sat on the couch holding Eli, her mind racing. I can't miss this, she muttered. This could change everything. She looked around the tiny apartment, peeling paint, a flickering bulb, a leaky roof, and felt the weight of every sacrifice she'd made. Then she wrapped Eli in a blanket, tucked him safely in a carrier, and whispered, We're doing this together, baby. The next morning, Lagos traffic was chaos. Flooded roads, blaring horns, impatient drivers. But Amara pressed on. By the time she reached the tall glass tower of Global Vista, she was soaked, but her spirit was unshaken. She wiped the rain from her blazer, adjusted her curls, and entered the boardroom. The room was filled with executives in dark suits, laptops open, eyes sharp. Mr. Adeni greeted her warmly. Amara, we've heard great things about your idea. Take the stage. She took a deep breath, glanced briefly at her baby sleeping in the carrier beside the table, and began. Her voice was steady, passionate, convincing. Africa doesn't lack innovation, she said. We lack collaboration. My proposal isn't just about profit, it's about unity. If we bring smaller firms together under one ecosystem, we create jobs, strengthen economies, and give our youth a global voice. The room was silent. Then came the applause. Mr. Adeniyi stood up. Brilliant, he said. Amara, you just changed the future of this company. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, Thank you, sir. She didn't know it yet. But that day marked the beginning of her rise. Months passed. Her proposal became a project. Her project became a movement. Tech companies from Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa joined the merger. Investors lined up. Her name appeared on industry blogs and news outlets. People began to call her the Merger Queen. But with every headline, one man's pride began to crumble. Caleb's. It started one evening at a business gala in Victoria Island. Caleb and Vivian arrived arm in arm, smiling for the cameras. Reporters surrounded them, asking about their rumoured marriage and Cole Holdings' expansion plans. Then, midway through the event, a journalist asked Vivian, Mom, what's your view on the merger led by Global Vista's Amara Johnson? Vivian's expression stiffened. Amara who? The strategist behind the $500 million Pan-Africa merger, the journalist replied. Her initiative just outpaced your last quarter's growth by 30%. The cameras flashed. Caleb froze. Vivian forced a smile. Competition is healthy, she said, but her eyes cut sharply toward Caleb, who stood rigid beside her. That night, when they returned home, Vivian was furious. You never told me your ex-wife was the one leading that merger, she hissed. Caleb stammered. I didn't know she was working on something that big. Vivian slammed her glass on the table. Do you realize how this looks? The woman you left has become my biggest rival. The media is mocking me, Caleb. He tried to calm her down, but the damage was done. For the first time, Vivian looked at him with disgust. You were supposed to be my strength. Now you're my embarrassment. Those words stung deeper than he expected. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He turned on the TV and there she was again, Amara, on a business program, speaking with elegance and power. We've raised $700 million in cross-border funding, she said. Our goal is to give African innovation the global respect it deserves. Her eyes were sharp, her smile calm. But beneath that calm, Caleb could sense something else. A message only he could understand. You left me broken. I rose anyway. He turned off the TV and stared into the darkness. Regret began to eat at him. Meanwhile, Amara's success didn't make her bitter. It made her wiser. She bought her mother a new house in Lekki, hired staff to help with Eli, and poured her heart into work. But every now and then she still felt the ache of betrayals. One afternoon she stood by her office window, watching the city below. Her assistant, Tolu, entered. "Ma'am, the new board members want to meet tomorrow morning. Cole Holdings has shown interest in partnering with us for the new expansion." Amara froze. "Cole Holdings?" "Yes, ma'am," Tolu said. "They want to merge with Global Vista to gain access to our network." A slow, cold smile curved on Amara's lips. "Set up the meeting," she said softly. "I want to see who they'll send." The next day, she arrived at the Global Vista conference room early. Her black suit was immaculate, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her eyes confident. Then the door opened. Caleb walked in. He froze when he saw her. The woman he had abandoned in a hospital bed now sitting at the head of the table, poised, powerful and calm. "Good morning. Mr. Johnson," she said smoothly as though he were just another client. "Please, have a seat." He hesitated, then sat. His palms were sweaty. "Amara, I didn't know you were the lead strategist?" she finished for him. "Yes, I am." For a moment, their eyes locked. The silence was sharp enough to cut through glass. She continued flipping through documents. "Let's discuss your proposal." Caleb tried to speak, but his voice faltered. "Amara, please, This is business, Mr. Johnson," she said coldly. "Not personal." He swallowed hard, shame burning through him. As she outlined the terms of the deal, every word felt like poetic justice. The man who abandoned her on her delivery day was now at her mercy, desperate for approval. At the end of the meeting, she stood up, extended her hand, and said with a faint smile, "Thank you for your time. I'll let you know if your company meets our standards." Then she walked out, leaving him speechless, humiliated, and broken. That night, Amara returned home to her son and her mother. Eli was crawling across the carpet, laughing joyfully. Mama Ifeoma smiled proudly. "My daughter," she said, "you've turned pain into power." Amara knelt beside her mother, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Or without God," Mama Ifeoma added. Amara nodded. "And maybe without betrayal." Her mother frowned slightly. "You don't miss him, do you?" Amara smiled sadly. "No, Mama. I've learned to thank God even for heartbreak. It's what pushed me to discover who I really am." She lifted Eli into her arms and kissed his forehead. "He's the only man I'll ever need." But as she tucked him into bed, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A voice she recognized immediately replied softly, "Amara, it's me, Caleb. Please, can we talk?" Her grip tightened on the phone. "About what?" she asked quietly. "About us," he said. "I made a mistake. I need to make it right." Her heart pounded, not from love, but from disbelief. He continued, his voice trembling. "Vivian's company is collapsing. She blames me. I have nothing left, Amara. Please, I just want to see you, to see my son." Amara's eyes hardened. "Caleb," she said, her tone firm and cold. "The man you're calling died the day you abandoned me. I buried him with my pain." Then she hung up. She stood silently for a long moment, her eyes glistening, her heart steady. Outside, the wind howled, carrying echoes of the past. But Amara didn't flinch. She looked at her sleeping baby and whispered, "Let the storm come. I'm not afraid anymore." Before we move to the next chapter, if you're watching this story right now, take a moment. What would you have done if you were Amara? Could you forgive Caleb? Or would you walk away like she did? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with friends, so more people can see how betrayal can turn into strength. The morning after Caleb's desperate phone call, Amara woke to the golden light of dawn spilling across her bedroom floor. Her son, Eli, was already awake, babbling softly as he played with his plush toy lion. For a moment, she stood by the window and watched the sunrise paint the Lagos skyline. A quiet peace had settled in her home, but beneath it, something stirred. Unfinished business. She had not told anyone about the call, not her mother, not her assistant, not even her mentor at Global Vista. Part of her wanted to ignore it entirely, but another part, a deep, human part, wanted answers. Not closure, but understanding. She made herself a cup of tea, sat by the kitchen window, and replayed the moment in her mind. His voice, shaky, desperate, had sounded nothing like the proud, arrogant man she once knew. Vivian's company is collapsing. She blames me. I have nothing left. It didn't surprise her. She'd always known Vivian Cole's empire was built on ruthless ambition, not sustainability. The business world admired her fearlessness, but whispered about her poor ethics and risky investments. Caleb had tied his fate to a woman whose power was already fading. Amara sighed. "You chose your path," she whispered under her breath. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that fate wasn't done intertwining their stories. At Global Vista headquarters later that morning, the mood was electric. News had just broken that Global Vista's merger had reached $800 million in valuation, officially making it the fastest-growing tech conglomerate in West Africa. As she walked through the glass lobby, employees greeted her with admiration. "Good morning, ma'am." "Congratulations, Ms. Johnson." "Thank you for leading us, ma'am." She smiled warmly, nodding to each of them. It wasn't pride she felt, it was gratitude. Every step forward reminded her of how far she'd come, from the woman who once cried alone in a hospital bed. Inside her office, her assistant, Tolu, was waiting. "Ma'am, we've received another meeting request," Tolu said, flipping through her tablet. "This time from an international investor group, Arden Global. They want to discuss a possible acquisition." Amara's eyebrows lifted. "Acquisition? That's interesting. Set it for Friday." "Already done," Tolu said, then hesitated. "Also, there's someone waiting downstairs. He says he knows you personally. A Mr. Caleb Johnson." Amara froze for half a second, though her expression didn't change. "Tell security to let him wait," she said calmly. "I'll decide if he gets to see me." Tolu blinked, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Amara turned to the window, her reflection sharp against the glass. The world outside bustled with life, but inside time seemed to pause. 6 years ago, she had begged that man to stay. Today, he was begging just to see her face. Downstairs, Caleb sat in the marble reception area, looking wildly out of place. The once polished manager now wore a faded shirt and wrinkled trousers. His hair was slightly unkempt, and his eyes carried dark circles. He kept glancing around nervously, ignoring the curious stares from employees walking past. A woman at the front desk leaned toward another and whispered, "Isn't that Amara's ex-husband, the one who left her?" The other nodded. Life has shown him pepper. Look at him now." Caleb could feel their whispers cutting through the air. He clenched his fists, swallowing his pride. When Tolu approached him, clipboard in hand, he stood immediately. "She's not available yet," Tolu said politely. "But she's aware you're here." He nodded. "Please, tell her I just want 5 minutes." Tolu nodded curtly and walked away. Caleb sat back down, eyes fixed on the company's glowing logo across the lobby, Global Vista Inc. Empowering Africa through technology. Beneath it, Amara's portrait hung among the leaders of Vision display, her face confident, radiant, unshakable. He exhaled shakily. "I really messed up," he whispered. Amara finally walked into the lobby 40 minutes later. The room fell silent as she passed. Her black heels clicked against the polished floor, her presence commanding respect. Caleb stood, heart pounding, every word he'd planned vanishing from his mind. "Amara," he began softly. She stopped 2 steps away, her arms folded. "You wanted to see me?" He nodded. "Please. Just 5 minutes. That's all." She glanced at her watch. 4 minutes now." He swallowed hard. I know I don't deserve your time." But I had to come. I've lost everything. Vivian fired me. The company's under investigation. My accounts are frozen. I have nowhere to go. Her face was unreadable. And you think that's my problem? He flinched at the iciness in her tone. No, I don't. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for leaving, for what I did to you. Her eyes flickered briefly, something between pity and disbelief. You left me on the day I gave birth, Caleb. There's no apology in this world that can erase that kind of cruelty. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I was blinded by ambition. Vivian promised me power. I thought that was love. And now? She asked quietly. He hesitated. Now I know what I threw away. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. No, Caleb, you didn't throw it away, you buried it. And I built something stronger from the ashes. He lowered his head, shame washing over him. Please, he whispered, just let me see my son. That made her pause. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Then she said, He doesn't know who you are. You've never earned that right. He looked up, desperate. Let me earn it then. Please. I'll do anything. Her eyes softened slightly, but only for a second. Go rebuild your own life first. Then maybe we'll talk. She turned to leave, but he called after her, voice trembling. Amara, I've changed. She stopped, not turning around. No, Caleb, you're just broken. Change comes when pain turns to purpose. You're not there yet. Then she walked away, her heels echoing against the marble floor, leaving him standing in silence, alone again. That night, as Amara drove home through the Lekki Bridge, her phone buzzed with notifications, news articles, congratulatory messages, press invitations. She was the woman everyone wanted to talk to. But inside she felt strangely heavy. She parked by the waterfront and stepped out, the cool breeze brushing against her face, the city lights reflected off the water like scattered stars. She thought about how far she'd come, about the little boy sleeping in her mother's arms at home, and about the man who once promised her forever, but gave her abandonment. Instead, her life had come full circle, yet something told her this wasn't the end. The next morning, Global Vista's board gathered for a critical meeting about the upcoming partnership proposal with Arden Global, the international investor group. Amara led the presentation flawlessly, but midway through, Mr. Adeniyi received a call. He frowned. What? When? Okay, send it to me immediately. Everyone watched as he ended the call, his expression dark. Team, he said, I just got word that Cole Holdings has filed for bankruptcy. The room murmured. Vivian Cole is under investigation for fraud and money laundering. Her assets are frozen. Her partners are pulling out. Amara's pen stilled in her hand. Mr. Adeniyi looked at her. Amara, I believe she'll try to drag Global Vista into her mess, given your history with her ex-employee. Be careful. Amara nodded. Don't worry, sir. We'll handle it. That evening, news spread across social media. Cole Holdings' empire crumbles. Vivian Cole, arrested in shocking financial scandal. TV anchors discussed it endlessly. Photos of Vivian in handcuffs circulated online, and among those watching quietly from a small rented apartment was Caleb. He sat on the edge of his bed, face pale, eyes hollow. His phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. He opened it. Caleb Johnson, this is a reminder that your testimony is required in the ongoing investigation into Cole Holdings. Please report to EFCC headquarters by Monday. He buried his face in his hands. Everything was gone. His job, his wealth, his reputation, and the only person he had ever truly loved was now the one who wanted nothing to do with him. Meanwhile, Amara's focus was unshaken. She had bigger things to deal with, the merger expansion with Arden Global. As she finalized the deal, she received an unexpected visitor in her office, Mr. Cole, Vivian's estranged brother. A tall, calm man with silver hair and a soft smile. Ms. Johnson, he said respectfully, I wanted to thank you. You may not realize it, but your merger indirectly exposed the corruption inside my sister's company. The world finally sees what she's done. Amara nodded slowly. I didn't do it for revenge, sir. I did it for progress. He smiled. That's what separates you from her. Before leaving, he placed a small white envelope on her desk. Consider this an invitation to the future. Arden Global wants to make you their regional partner for Africa. Her breath caught. Regional partner? Yes, he said with a nod. It means full control over African operations. It's yours, if you accept. Amara sat back, overwhelmed. She had climbed from heartbreak to global leadership. Thank you, she whispered. That night, she returned home to tell her mother the news. Mama Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears of joy. My daughter, you've turned pain into gold, she said. Amara smiled and hugged her tightly. Mama, I just want Eli to grow up knowing that his mother never gave up. As she spoke, her phone rang again. She sighed, expecting another reporter, but froze when she saw the caller ID. Caleb Johnson. She hesitated, then answered. Amara, please. His voice quivered. They want me to testify against Vivian. I'm scared. I need your help. I don't have anyone else. Her tone was calm, measured. You don't need me, Caleb. You need the truth. Do what's right, not what's convenient. He choked on his words. Will you ever forgive me? Amara was silent for a long time before replying. Forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me. And I've already done that, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. She hung up. Her reflection in the window stared back, strong, calm, free. The woman who had once been abandoned was now unstoppable. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the shuffling of papers. Caleb sat at the witness stand, his palms sweaty, his heart hammering against his ribs. The judge's voice echoed across the hall. Mr. Caleb Johnson, you are under oath. Tell this court everything you know about the financial irregularities at Cole Holdings. He cleared his throat, his voice barely steady. Yes, my lord. For weeks, he had been haunted by nightmares. Memories of Vivian's manipulations, the endless nights of deceit, the empire he helped her build on lies. Now he stood here, stripped of all pride, testifying against the very woman he once left his wife for. The prosecutor leaned forward. Mr. Johnson, did Mrs. Vivian Cole instruct you to alter financial records in order to deceive investors? Caleb hesitated. His voice trembled. Yes, she did. And did you comply? He swallowed hard. Yes, I did everything she asked. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Journalists scribbled frantically, their cameras flashing. And why did you comply? He looked down. Because I thought she loved me. I thought I was securing my future, but I was only securing my destruction. The courtroom buzzed again. From the audience section, one pair of calm eyes watched him intently. Amara's. She hadn't planned to attend, but curiosity and justice had drawn her here. She sat quietly at the back, dressed in a navy blue suit, her expression unreadable. Caleb didn't see her yet, but her presence filled the room like a quiet storm. Vivian sat at the defendant's table, her once polished appearance now shadowed by exhaustion and anger. Her lawyers whispered hurriedly beside her. She shot Caleb a venomous look, one that could have frozen fire. You snake, she hissed under her breath as he stepped down from the stand. He didn't reply. For the first time, Caleb didn't feel fear toward her. He only felt regret. Deep, aching regret that reached down to his bones. When the session adjourned, reporters flooded the hallway. Mr. Johnson, do you feel remorse for what you did? One shouted. Caleb paused. Every day, he said quietly. But remorse doesn't undo pain. It only reminds you what you lost. Cameras flashed again as he pushed past the crowd. Amara rose from her seat in the back, pulling her sunglasses over her eyes. She turned to leave, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. As she walked toward the exit, Caleb spotted her. Their eyes met through the chaos. For a split second, Everything around them blurred. Reporters, flashes, guards, gone. Only the ghost of their past lingered between them. He tried to move toward her. Amara! But she turned away before he could finish. Later that day, she sat by the window of her office, gazing out at the busy streets of Victoria Island. Her assistant, Tolu, entered quietly. "Mom, you were at the trial, weren't you?" Amara turned, her face calm. "Yes." Tolu hesitated. "Do you feel sorry for him?" Amara looked back out the window, watching the sunlight glint off the high-rise buildings. "Pity is not the same as forgiveness," she said softly. "I can feel sorry for what he's become, but I'll never wish to return to what we were." Tolu nodded slowly. "Understood, Ma'am. Also, there's some good news. Arden Global confirmed the regional partnership. They want to announce it officially next week. And they want you to represent Africa at the signing ceremony in New York." Amara's eyes widened slightly. "New York?" "Yes, Mom. Full sponsorship, private jet, all expenses covered. It's history in the making." For a moment she was silent, letting the weight of the moment settle in. She thought of her humble beginnings, of nights she typed on a flickering laptop while rocking a newborn. She thought of rejection, heartbreak, loneliness, and how all of it had prepared her for this moment. A slow smile curved on her lips. "Book the flight." "Yes, Ma'am," Tolu said, grinning. The next few days were a blur of interviews, photo shoots, and meetings. Amara's name was everywhere, from abandoned wife to Africa's most powerful businesswoman. The media couldn't get enough of her story, but fame came with a price. One evening, as she returned home, she found a note slipped under her door. It read, "Please meet me, just once. I need to see him. Our son. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Lekki waterfront. Caleb." She stared at the paper for a long time. Her first instinct was to tear it apart, but a small part of her heart, the one that still believed in redemption, hesitated. She didn't owe him anything, or not even a glance, but maybe Eli did deserve to know the truth one day. After a long pause, she folded the note and placed it on her nightstand. The following evening, the Lekki waterfront was quiet. The orange glow of sunset stretched across the horizon, waves lapping gently against the shore. Caleb stood waiting, wearing a simple shirt and jeans, looking older than his years. When he saw Amara approaching, his breath caught. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her black dress fluttering slightly in the breeze. He smiled faintly. "You came." "I didn't come for you," she said. "I came for clarity." He nodded, his eyes heavy. "That's fair." They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the soft crash of waves. Finally, he spoke. "I've been offered a plea deal for my testimony. I might walk free, but even if I do, I have nothing left. Vivian's in prison. My name is ruined. I wanted to see him, to tell him I'm sorry." Amara's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. "He's too young to understand who you are, and when he's old enough, I'll tell him the truth. Not to shame you, but to teach him what kind of man not to become." He winced, but nodded. "I deserve that." For a long while, neither of them spoke. The wind picked up and seagulls flew overhead. Then Caleb said quietly, "You know, I watched your interview last night, the way you spoke about leadership. It reminded me of the woman I fell in love with." Amara looked at him sharply. "You fell in love with power, Caleb, not me. And the difference is what destroyed you." He looked down. "Maybe us. But I still wish I'd chosen differently." She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Regret doesn't fix the past, it just teaches you where you went wrong. Use it. Don't waste it." He nodded slowly. "Can I at least send him something? A letter?" She hesitated, then said, "Mail it to my office. I'll decide if he ever reads it." Caleb's eyes glistened. "Thank you." She turned to leave, her silhouette framed by the last light of dusk. But as she walked away, he called out softly, "Amara?" She stopped, but didn't turn. "I'm proud of you," he said, "even if I had nothing to do with it." Her voice was calm but distant. You had everything to do with it, Caleb. You were the pain that forced me to grow. Then she walked away, her figure fading into the evening light. 2 weeks later, Amara was in New York. The conference room overlooked Manhattan's skyline. A breathtaking view of glass towers glowing beneath a clear blue sky. Executives from around the world filled the room. Cameras clicked as the signing ceremony began. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "please welcome the new regional partner of Arden Global for Africa, Ms. Amara Johnson." Thunderous applause filled the hall as she stepped forward. Her elegant black suit reflected the stage lights as she signed the final document that sealed the $800 million merger expansion. As the cameras flashed, she smiled for the world. But deep inside, she whispered a prayer of gratitude. When she stepped down, an interviewer approached her. "Ms. Johnson, what's your message to women who are struggling after heartbreak or betrayal?" Amara paused, then smiled softly. "Don't waste your pain. Let it shape you. Don't chase revenge, chase purpose. Because when you rise, your success speaks louder than any apology ever could." The audience erupted in applause. That night, in her New York hotel room, she received a notification on her phone. A news alert. Caleb Johnson cleared of major charges after testimony, seen volunteering at Lagos Youth Center. She stared at the screen for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled faintly and whispered, "Good." She looked out at the city lights shimmering below and thought of her son, her mother, her journey. The scars of betrayal had become the proof of her strength. The rhythmic hum of the private jet filled the air as it sliced through the night sky, heading back to Lagos. Amara sat by the window, her chin resting lightly on her hand, her eyes reflecting the stars beyond the glass. The soft cabin lights cast a warm glow across her face, but inside her there was still a quiet storm. She had just returned from New York, from signing one of the biggest deals of her career. Yet peace still felt distant. Her assistant, Tolu, was fast asleep on the opposite seat, her tablet still open on her lap. The soft whine of the engines was steady, but Amara's mind wasn't. She scrolled through her phone, reading the countless congratulatory messages. "You're an inspiration, Ms. Johnson. Africa is proud of you. The woman who rose from heartbreak to build an empire." Each message made her heart warm. Yet behind that success, she carried a quiet ache, a piece of her that remembered what it took to get here. The loneliness, the humiliation. The nights she cried beside her child, wondering if she'd ever smile again. She turned off her phone and whispered under her breath, "God, thank you. But please let this peace last." The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing at Murtala Mohammed International Airport in 15 minutes. Amara straightened her seat, glanced at her sleeping assistant, and smiled faintly. Her home awaited her. Her mother, her son, her real joy. By the time they landed, it was almost 2 a.m. Lagos was alive even at that hour. Taxi lights blinking, vendors packing up, policemen patrolling the gates. Amara's black SUV waited just outside, her driver bowing slightly as he opened the door. "Welcome back, Mom," he said. "Thank you, Chike. Let's head home." As the car sped through the quiet streets, she leaned back and watched the familiar sights pass, the faint glow of streetlights, the silhouette of palm trees, the smell of the night breeze after rain. By the time they arrived at her Lekki home, her mother was waiting by the doorway, wrapped in a shawl, smiling warmly. "My daughter, you're finally home," Mama Ifeoma said, pulling her into an embrace. Amara held her tightly. "Mama, I've missed you." "And Eli has missed you even more," her mother said. "He's been talking about you non-stop." They walked into the house. The scent of fresh-baked bread lingered in the air, and a soft night lamp glowed near the staircase. Amara tiptoed into Eli's room. The little boy was asleep, hugging his stuffed lion tightly. His curly hair framed his soft face, and his tiny chest rose and fell with each gentle breath. Amara brushed a hand over his forehead and whispered, "Mummy's home." Then, for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to rest. Morning came with a golden glow. Birds chirped outside, and the smell of fried plantain filled the air. Amara sat at the breakfast table, sipping her tea while scrolling through her news feed. Every major publication had her face on it. From abandonment to billionaire status, the rise of Amara Johnson. She shook her head with a smile. These journalists will never get tired. Her mother laughed softly. At least now the world knows what I've always known, that my daughter is destined for greatness. Amara smiled. I'm still learning, Mama. There's so much ahead. Her mother nodded, then leaned forward with a more serious tone. Speaking of what's ahead, have you thought about telling Eli about his father? He's starting to ask questions. Amara's face softened. Questions? Yes. Yesterday he asked me why other children have daddies who take them to school and he doesn't. Amara's hand froze around her teacup. And what did you say? I told him his father is away, but that his mother is enough. Amara sighed, her eyes clouding over. He'll know one day, but not now. I don't want his innocence stained by his father's mistakes. Mama Ifioma placed her hand over her daughter's. You can't hide the truth forever, but I trust you'll know the right time. Amara nodded silently. At the Global Vista headquarters, the atmosphere was festive. Banners hung across the lobby. Welcome back, our global champion. Employees clapped as she walked in. The sound of applause echoing down the glass corridors. Tolu ran to meet her, grinning widely. Ma'am, the press is waiting in the conference room for your post-merger statement. Amara smiled. Give me 5 minutes. Of course. She walked into her office, her sanctuary. Everything was spotless. Framed awards, certificates, family photos, and a painting Eli had made with colourful handprints. Beneath it were 3 words scrawled in his messy handwriting. Mummy is my hero. She touched the painting, tears prickling her eyes. Yes, baby. I'll keep being that hero. The press conference was streamed live across Africa. Cameras flashed as Amara took the stage. Ms. Johnson, a journalist asked, you're now considered one of the most influential women in African business. How do you handle such pressure? She smiled. By remembering why I started. I didn't build this for fame. I built it for every woman who was told she couldn't. For every dreamer who thought heartbreak meant the end. It's not the end. It's the beginning. Applause filled the room. Another journalist stood. What do you say to those who believe women have to choose between family and success? Amara's expression softened. They don't have to choose, they just have to fight for balance. And if society won't give them that space, they must carve it themselves. The room erupted again in cheers. Cameras zoomed in as she smiled graciously, her poise unshakable. Later that afternoon, after hours of interviews, she finally had a moment to breathe. She walked to the rooftop terrace, gazing down at the bustling city below. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I know you're busy, but thank you. For your words. For showing me what strength looks like. Caleb. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back. I didn't do it for you. But I hope you find your peace. She locked the phone and placed it aside. That evening, as she returned home, the sound of laughter filled the house. Eli was in the living room with his grandmother, stacking toy blocks into a crooked tower. Mummy! He squealed, running into her arms. She lifted him, spinning him around. My little champion, did you miss me? Yes, he shouted, giggling. Grandma says you went to make the world better. Amara laughed. Grandma is right. He looked up at her curiously. Mommy, do I have a daddy? The question hit her like a wave. She froze, trying to hide her reaction. Her mother, standing by the doorway, watched quietly. Amara knelt down, brushing a curl from Eli's forehead. Every child has a daddy, baby, but sometimes God gives you a strong mommy to take care of you instead. Eli frowned slightly, processing her words. So, my daddy's not coming? She hugged him tightly. You already have all the love you need right here. He nodded slowly, leaning into her shoulder. Okay, Mommy. When she looked up, her mother's eyes were glistening. Weeks passed, and Amara's life continued to flourish. She launched a mentorship foundation for single mothers in tech, providing scholarships and startup grants. Her story became a beacon of hope. But life, as it often does, had another surprise waiting. One morning, Tolu rushed into her office, her face pale. Mom, you need to see this. She handed Amara a newspaper. The headline read, Ex-business tycoon Caleb Johnson hospitalized after accident. In critical condition. Amara's heart dropped. She sank into her chair, the paper trembling in her hands. What happened? She asked quietly. Motorcycle accident, Tolu said. He was volunteering at the youth centre, apparently trying to help a boy cross the road, when a truck lost control. Amara's chest tightened. Where is he? St. Raphael's Hospital, IKEA. She didn't know why, but before she could stop herself, she was already driving there. The hospital corridors felt hauntingly familiar. The same antiseptic smell, the same echoing footsteps. Memories flooded back, the day she gave birth, the day he walked away. At the reception, the nurse recognized her immediately. Ms. Johnson, he's in room 207. But the doctors aren't sure if he'll make it through the night. Amara nodded and walked down the hallway, her heels clicking softly against the tiles. When she entered the room, her breath caught. Caleb lay motionless, tubes attached to his arms, his face pale and bruised. Machines beeped steadily beside him. He looked fragile. Nothing like the man who once strutted around in designer suits and arrogance. For a long moment, she just stood there, silent. Then she pulled a chair beside the bed and sat down. You don't know I'm here, she said softly. And maybe that's better, because there's nothing left for us to say. Her voice trembled slightly. I hated you for so long. I wanted to see you broken. But now that you are, it doesn't feel like victory. It just feels sad. She reached out, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. You made your choices, Caleb, and I made mine. Maybe this is life's way of giving you a chance to make peace. His fingers twitched slightly, his lips moving faintly. She leaned closer. Amara, he whispered, barely audible. Her eyes widened. I'm here. I'm sorry, he breathed weakly. Tell Eli. His voice broke off as the heart monitor beeped faster. Nurses rushed in, shouting orders. Ma'am, please step aside. Amara stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as they worked frantically. He's crashing! Get the defibrillator! The sound of electric shocks, frantic commands and beeping filled the room. After several tense minutes, the doctor looked up, his face grim. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We did everything we could. Amara's knees gave way. She sank into the chair, covering her face. The sound of her own sobbing echoed through the sterile air. For years she had prayed for justice, for him to feel her pain. And now that he was gone, she realized that forgiveness wasn't about him at all. It was about freeing herself. She wiped her tears slowly, stood and whispered, Rest now, Caleb. I hope God gives you the peace you couldn't find here. That evening, Amara returned home quietly. Her mother was waiting, sensing the heaviness in her eyes. He's gone, Amara said softly. Mama Ifeoma nodded slowly, her expression tender. May his soul find mercy. Amara looked toward Eli's room, where her son was colouring on the floor. One day I'll tell him, but not today. Her mother hugged her gently. You've done enough, my daughter. Now, live freely. Amara smiled faintly. I intend to. Before we move to the next chapter, if you're watching this, take a moment to reflect. Would you have gone to see Caleb one last time? Or would you have stayed away? Let us know in the comments below. The soft drizzle of rain fell across Lagos that evening, washing the city in silver. Streetlights flickered to life, cars honked impatiently through puddled roads, And somewhere above the chaos, in her penthouse apartment, Amara Johnson stood alone by the window, watching the city she'd once struggled to survive now bow at her success. Yet in that vast view of light and life, she felt something hollow. Not pain, that had faded, not regret, that had healed. What she felt was a quiet emptiness, the kind that comes after closure. It had been 2 months since Caleb's death. She'd attended his funeral quietly, standing far from the crowd. There had been no cameras, no journalists, no one to document the moment the man who once abandoned her was laid to rest. Only a few old colleagues from Cole Holdings, some church members and one middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Caleb's aunt. The pastor had spoken gently of forgiveness and grace. Amara had stood silently, her black veil hiding the storm behind her eyes. She hadn't cried that day. Instead, she'd felt something deeper. A strange peace that told her his chapter in her story was truly closed. Now, as rain kissed the glass, she whispered, "May your soul rest, Caleb, and may mine finally breathe." Behind her, little Eli ran through the living room, laughing as he chased his toy airplane. His joy was a light that filled every empty space in her heart. "Mummy, look! I'm flying!" he shouted. Amara turned, smiling warmly. "Yes, you are, my little pilot. Fly high." She watched him spin around in circles until he collapsed on the rug, giggling uncontrollably. For the first time in years, she realized that her heart didn't hurt when she smiled. The next morning came with brightness and motion. Amara was up early, dressed sharply in a white blazer and navy trousers, ready for her keynote address at the Women in Business Summit. Her assistant Tolu entered her office with her usual enthusiasm. "Ma'am, your driver's ready. The press is already gathering at the Civic Centre." Amara nodded. "Perfect. Let's go." As they drove through Victoria Island, Tolu glanced at her tablet. "By the way, Ma'am, we got another offer from CNN Africa. They want to feature your story in their new Resilience series." Amara chuckled softly. "I've told them 3 times already I'm not ready to be a TV spectacle." "But Ma'am," Tolu grinned, "your story is powerful. People want to see hope, to see that broken doesn't mean defeated." Amara smiled faintly. "Then maybe one day, but on my own terms." The Civic Centre auditorium was packed. Entrepreneurs, students, CEOs, and journalists filled every seat. The banner above the stage read, "African Women in Business, Breaking Barriers, Building Empires." When Amara stepped onto the stage, applause thundered across the hall. She waited for it to fade, then smiled, poised, stensis, and elegant. "Thank you," she began. "I stand before you not as someone who had everything figured out, but as someone who once lost everything, love, home, and hope, and found purpose through pain." The audience was silent. Cameras clicked. She continued, her tone rich with emotion. "When I was left alone on my delivery bed, I thought my story was over, but life has a way of rewriting endings if you refuse to give up. I learned that strength isn't born from perfection. It's born from survival." People nodded, moved. A few wiped tears. She smiled softly. "So, if you're watching this right now, whether you're in Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, or Atlanta, I want you to remember something. Your pain doesn't define you. What you build from it does." The applause that followed was deafening. Among the sea of faces, one woman in the second row stood up with tears in her eyes. "You saved my life," she said aloud. "I was about to give up after my husband left me. But your story, gave me courage, just calm." Amara smiled warmly. "Then promise me one thing. Never let betrayal bury your dreams." "I won't," the woman whispered. After the event, reporters surrounded her, thrusting microphones forward. "Ms. Johnson, what's next for you?" Amara smiled. "I'm starting something new, a foundation called the Ely Project, named after my son. It'll support single mothers who want to start businesses but have no resources. The crowd erupted in cheers. What inspired it? Another journalist asked. She paused thoughtfully. Love, and the realization that every child deserves to see their mother win. The cameras flashed, capturing that moment, her eyes shining, her words heavy with truth. Later that evening, she returned home to find her mother in the kitchen, stirring a pot of stew. "Mama, it smells heavenly in here," Amara said, slipping off her heels. Her mother laughed. "You've been on TV again, haven't you?" "Guilty," Mama Ifeoma smiled proudly. "You've made me the happiest woman in the world, Amara, when I think of those nights we couldn't afford light, and now see you on global news. I thank God daily." Amara hugged her from behind. "You believed in me before anyone else did." "And I always will," her mother said softly. They shared a quiet moment. The only sound was the bubbling stew and the soft hum of evening. Then Mama Ifeoma spoke again, carefully. "Have you thought about opening your heart again?" Amara laughed softly. "Mama, please." "I mean it," she said gently. "You've healed, you've grown. You deserve to be loved again. Properly this time." Amara was silent for a long moment. "Maybe someday. But right now, I'm married to my purpose." Her mother chuckled. "Purpose won't keep you warm at night." Amara laughed too. "Mama!" 2 weeks later, Amara hosted the launch ceremony for the Eli Project at the Echo Convention Centre. The event was filled with women from all walks of life, market traders, widows, graduates, young mothers, all there to receive funding, mentorship, and hope. Amara stood on stage with tears in her eyes as she looked at them. "This is what it's all about," she said. "Not the money, not the fame, but giving others a reason to keep going." The audience clapped and chanted her name, "Amara, Amara, Amara." In that moment, she felt her soul ignite with purpose. After the ceremony, she was greeting guests when a man approached her. He was tall, with warm brown skin, a neatly trimmed beard, and eyes that carried kindness, not pride. "Ms. Johnson," he said, extending his hand, "I'm David Olumide, Director of the African Children's Education Trust. Your foundation's work aligns perfectly with ours. I'd love to collaborate." She shook his hand, smiling. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Olumide. I'm open to collaboration." He chuckled. "Please, call me David." They spoke for a while, about education, empowerment, and shared dreams. For the first time in a long while, Amara found herself enjoying a conversation that wasn't about business or survival. There was an ease to David's voice, a warmth that reminded her of something she hadn't felt in years: peace. When the event ended, he offered to walk her to her car. "You've built something powerful, Amara. You should be proud." She smiled softly. "I am, but there's always more to do." He nodded. "Then maybe we can do it together." She raised an eyebrow playfully. "Business or something else?" He grinned. "Let's start with business." They both laughed. Days turned into weeks, and David's presence gradually wove itself into her life. He attended project meetings, offered strategic advice, and sometimes joined her and Eli for lunch at her mother's house. Eli took to him quickly, always running to him with giggles and endless questions. "Uncle David, can you fix my plane? Uncle David, watch me draw. Uncle David, are you Mommy's friend?" David would laugh every time. "Yes, I'm Mommy's friend." One evening, as Amara watched them play together, she caught herself smiling, genuinely smiling. Her mother noticed from the doorway and whispered, "You see, God restores." Amara laughed softly. "It's just friendship." "Mama." Her mother winked. "That's how all great love stories begin." But not everyone was happy about Amara's growing influence. In the corporate world, power always attracts envy. One morning, Tolu burst into her office, visibly shaken. "Mom, we have a problem. Someone leaked internal data about our foundation's funds to the media. They're claiming you're mismanaging money." Amara's jaw tightened. "What?" "It's spreading fast. Some online tabloids are running headlines, calling you a fraud." Amara stood, her calm demeanor turning to steel. "Find out who's behind it. Now." By afternoon, they traced the source. a rival firm led by one of Vivian Cole's former associates. They were trying to destroy Amara's credibility out of revenge. Amara called a press conference that evening. Standing before the cameras, she addressed the nation calmly. When you rise, expect storms, but storms don't drown the strong, they reveal them. Every document, every fund, every dollar used by my foundation is transparent and traceable. And for anyone who thinks lies can undo truth, you're welcome to try. Her tone was fearless. By the next day, the audit reports she released cleared her name completely. The backlash turned into admiration. Her supporters flooded social media with the hashtag #WeStandWithAmara. That night, David called her. "You handled that beautifully," he said. She smiled. "I learned that power isn't loud. It's quiet confidence." He paused, then said softly, "You're incredible, Amara. Truly." There was a long silence, the kind end that holds meaning. "Thank you, David," she said finally. After they hung up, Amara sat by her window again, the same place where once she'd cried alone. Now she smiled, watching the city lights twinkle below. Her story had come full circle. From abandoned wife to respected leader, from heartbreak to healing. And maybe, just maybe, the next chapter of her life wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about living. The morning sun poured through the wide glass windows of Amara's home, painting streaks of gold across the marble floor. The scent of brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the gentle laughter of a boy who had just turned 6. Eli was at the dining table, dressed in his tiny blue school uniform, legs swinging excitedly under the chair. He munched on slices of bread, his eyes darting between his plate and the small action figure on the table. "Mummy, guess what?" he said with a mouthful. Amara smiled as she buttered her toast. "What, champ?" "Uncle David said he's taking me and Grandma to the zoo this weekend." "Did he?" she said, pretending to be surprised. Sounds like someone's becoming best friends with Uncle David," Eli giggled. "He said lions don't eat good people. So if we see one, I'll tell it I'm good." Amara laughed heartily, shaking her head. "You definitely are, my brave boy." Across the table, Mama Ifeoma smiled quietly, watching her daughter and grandson. "You see, Amara," she said softly, "this is peace. This is what you've been building all along." Amara looked up at her mother and smiled, but her thoughts were far deeper. It had been almost a year since Caleb's passing. Life had moved forward, gently but surely. The ache had faded, replaced by a calm acceptance. Her foundation, the Eli Project, had grown beyond her imagination, now operating across 6 African countries. Women from poor communities were starting businesses, young mothers were going back to school, and children who once had no hope were now in classrooms. Her name had become synonymous with strength and purpose. But for Amara, success had never been about fame. It was about legacy. She leaned back, sipping her coffee, watching Eli chatter excitedly about animals. And then her phone buzzed. A message from David. "Good morning, Amara. Hope you and Eli are well. I'm outside. Didn't want to interrupt breakfast. Just wanted to drop off the documents for our upcoming partnership with the UN Foundation." She smiled as she typed back, "Come in. We just finished eating." A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. David stepped in, dressed casually in a dark blue shirt and jeans, carrying a brown folder. His warm smile filled the room instantly. "Good morning, Mama Ifeoma," he greeted politely. "And good morning, young man." "Uncle David!" Eli shouted, running into his arms. David lifted him easily and laughed. "You're getting heavier every day." "That's because Grandma gives me 2 spoons of rice instead of 1, Eli said proudly. Everyone laughed. Mama Ifeoma chuckled. "He eats like his mother did at his age." Amara smiled faintly, watching them. The easy laughter, the comfort, the gentleness. It was so different from the tension she'd once lived with. David set the folder on the table and turned to her. These are the final agreements for the partnership signing next week. The UN Foundation wants to make it official in Abuja. They're even sending a delegate from New York. Amara's eyes widened slightly. That's incredible. We've come a long way, David. He nodded. You've come a long way, Amara. I just helped clear the path a little. She smiled softly. You did more than that. Their eyes met for a second longer than necessary. It wasn't the gaze of two business partners. It was something gentler, unspoken, a connection formed through shared purpose and mutual respect. Eli's voice broke the silence. Mummy, can Uncle David stay for lunch? Amara hesitated. He's probably busy, sweetheart, David grinned. Actually, I'd love to. Mama Ifeoma beamed. Then it's settled. Amara, help me in the kitchen. We'll cook something good. Amara rolled her eyes playfully. Mama, you just want an excuse to interrogate him. Her mother smiled slyly. Maybe, but that's my job. The aroma of fried rice and grilled chicken soon filled the kitchen. Amara stood beside her mother, slicing peppers while Mama Ifeoma stirred the pot. Mama, Amara whispered. Don't start. Her mother smirked. Start what? You know what? I'm just saying he's a good man, Mama said. He loves children, he respects you, and he looks at you the way Caleb should have. Amara sighed. Mama, please, we're just partners. Mama Ifeoma smiled knowingly. Partners can become more. Amara turned away, her cheeks warming slightly. She didn't want to admit it, but her mother was right about one thing. David had become important to her, more than she'd intended. Lunch was filled with laughter. David told stories about his childhood in Ibadan, how he once tried to raise a goat as a pet, and how it ran away with his neighbour's laundry. Even Amara laughed until tears rolled down her cheeks. At one point, Mama Ifeoma leaned close to him and asked, So, David, are you married? He smiled gently. I was, Mum. She passed away 5 years ago. Oh, Mama said softly. I'm sorry. He nodded. Thank you. But in a way, her death taught me to live again, to find meaning in helping others. That's why I started the trust. Amara looked at him, her expression softening. There was a quiet strength in his words, the same kind she had found in herself. When lunch was over, David stood to leave. Eli hugged him tightly. Uncle David, don't forget the zoo, David smiled. I won't, champ. Saturday, right? Yes. He turned to Amara. I'll call you tomorrow about the Abuja trip. And thanks for lunch, she smiled. Anytime. As he walked toward the door, Mama Ifeoma whispered under her breath. Good man. Good heart. Don't overthink it. Amara chuckled. Mama, please. That night, after Eli had gone to bed, Amara stood on her balcony, the city lights glimmering below. The wind carried the faint hum of traffic and the smell of rain. She closed her eyes, remembering Caleb's final moments, his broken apology, his frailty. And then she thought of David's gentle smile, his strength, his steadiness. Life was strange, she realized. The same heart that once shattered could learn to love differently, deeper, quieter, wiser. She wasn't in love, not yet. But for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the possibility. Days passed quickly. The UN Foundation partnership was finalized in Abuja. The signing ceremony drew global attention, with Amara's foundation recognized as one of the most impactful grassroots initiatives in Africa. At the event, Amara spoke with her usual grace. When I started the Ely project, I wasn't trying to change the world. I was just trying to rebuild mine. I wanted my son to see that even when people walk away, purpose never does. The audience gave her a standing ovation. David, standing at the side of the stage, watched with admiration and something deeper. When she stepped down, he met her with a soft smile. You were phenomenal, he said quietly. Thank you, she replied. He hesitated for a moment, then said, Amara, I know we've worked together for a while now, but I'd like to take you somewhere. Just dinner. No business, no press. She blinked in surprise. Dinner? He smiled. Yes. You deserve one evening that's not about the world, just about you. Amara hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right. Dinner. The following Friday evening, he picked her up. The restaurant overlooked the ocean, softly lit with candles and live jazz playing in the background. The sound of waves blended with the music, creating a rhythm that felt like peace itself. Amara wore a simple wine-coloured gown, her curls pinned neatly, a light shimmer on her cheeks. David couldn't help but stare for a moment when she walked in. You look incredible, he said. She smiled shyly. Thank you. You clean up nicely yourself. They talked for hours, about dreams, regrets, lessons. At one point he asked softly, Do you ever think about the past? She nodded. Sometimes, but not with pain anymore. Just gratitude. Because it taught me who I really am. He leaned forward slightly. And who is that? She smiled. A woman who learned that survival isn't the end goal. Living is, he smiled. I think your son and your mother would agree. They both laughed. As the evening wore on, the sky darkened and the sound of rain began to patter softly against the glass. It reminded Amara of another rain, years ago, when she had stood at a hospital window, heartbroken and alone. But this rain was different. This one felt like renewal. By the time David dropped her off that night, the air was cool and still. She turned to thank him, but he spoke first. Amara, he said gently, I don't want to rush anything and I don't expect anything from you. But I want you to know I admire the woman you've become. You're the strongest person I've ever met. She looked at him, her heart softening. Thank you, David. That means more than you know. He smiled faintly. Good night, Amara. Good night, David. As he drove away, she stood by the gate, the rain beginning again, soaking the edges of her dress. But she didn't move. She let it fall, because for the first time, it didn't sting. It washed her clean. Weeks later, the Eli Project expanded into Ghana and South Africa. International partners reached out and Amara's influence grew even more. Yet through all of it, she remained grounded, still attending Eli's school events, still cooking with her mother, still visiting the small churches that had once prayed for her during her darkest days. At one Sunday service, the pastor called her to the front. Brethren, he said, this woman is a testimony that when God says yes, no man can say no. The congregation clapped. Amara smiled humbly. I am nothing without his grace. I'm just a woman who refused to stay broken. As she stepped down, her mother hugged her tightly. My daughter, you've become the story I tell every woman who comes to me crying. Amara laughed. Mama, I hope you make me sound wise. Her mother grinned. Wiser than Solomon. They both laughed. Months later, at a small private event celebrating the Foundation's anniversary, David approached Amara quietly on the terrace. The moon shone bright above them. Do you ever think, he asked softly, that sometimes God lets us break just so he can rebuild us stronger? She nodded. I do. Because that's what he did with me, he smiled. And maybe, just maybe, he brings two rebuilt people together to build something greater. Amara looked at him, her eyes glistening with unspoken emotion. David. He took her hand gently. I'm not asking for an answer now. Just don't shut the door before it opens. She smiled, her voice barely above a whisper. I won't. For a long moment they stood there under the night sky, two souls who had known loss, finding peace in the same place, each other. A year later. The Eli Project had grown into one of the most influential humanitarian movements in Africa. Amara's story had inspired millions, and her name had become a symbol of hope. And one beautiful Saturday morning, she stood in the same church where she'd once wept as a broken woman. Only this time, she wore white. The soft sound of violins filled the air as she walked down the aisle, her son holding her hand proudly, leading her toward a smiling David waiting at the altar. In the front row, Mama Ifeoma wept quietly, whispering prayers of thanksgiving when the pastor spoke the words, Do you take this man? Amara's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude. I do, she said softly. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt whole. That night, as they danced beneath the stars, David whispered, "Do you still think purpose is all you need?" Amara smiled, leaning into him. "Purpose brought me here. Love will keep me here." He kissed her forehead, and for the first time since her life had fallen apart, Amara Johnson, once abandoned, once broken, knew what peace truly meant. Months later, during an interview on international television, the host asked, "Ms. Johnson, if you could say one thing to your younger self, the one who was left alone on that hospital bed, what would you tell her?" Amara smiled softly into the camera. "I'd tell her, don't cry too long, because one day you'll thank the pain for teaching you how to rise. And when you do, the world will know your name." Before we end this story, take a moment. What did Amara's journey teach you? If you believe that no betrayal can bury destiny and that pain can indeed become power, drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that prove one truth: broken doesn't mean defeated.